Okay guys, I'm here today with the great John Danaher, huge honor for me and Plácido. And guys, this week John is sharing an entire instructional video all about the fastest way to become effective on the standing position. John, I love your fastest way series. And I think the standing position is something that everybody wants to learn, especially because all these tournaments like ADCC rules, I think like this standing game is becoming more and more important in Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, there's definitely a major change going on in the sport where more than a decade ago, one of the big innovations we wanted to bring out in the sport was the whole idea of a leg lock revolution. Right now we're kind of in a post-leg lock revolution Jiu-Jitsu phase, and now the big thing of course is how to become effective in the standing position, and in particular the interface between standing and ground. So a lot of students now, much more so than was the case in the past where standing position was pretty much ignored, are now asking, okay, what are the first things I need to know in standing position? And the Fastest Way series is structured around the idea of not just giving a set of techniques, but getting people's competence levels up in the shortest amount of time. And okay, what are the minimum criteria I need just to become effective in this position? And I wanted to appeal to two different kinds of Jiu-Jitsu athletes here. There are those who are starting off in the sport and they just want to get their skill set up to become effective in the standing position in the shortest time possible. And there are those who have been in the sport a long time, but maybe they came from a generation where standing position wasn't particularly emphasized, and now they have to play catch up. And in the shortest period of time, how can I become competent? And I've always said to my students, regardless of whether you want to become strong in the standing position or not, the minimum you need is to be a killer on the ground and competent on the feet. You can't have a situation where you're a Jiu-Jitsu athlete who's an absolute killer on the floor, but you literally don't know the first thing to do in the standing position. You're selling yourself short, especially in the modern age where there's so much more interplay now than there was in previous generations between standing and ground. And that's what this video is about, how to become effective in the least amount of time. What are like the minimum criteria I need to be effective in the standing position?
Yeah. No, John, I think one example, while you were talking, I was just thinking like one example that popped up in my mind like right away is Nicolas Merigatti.
Yeah.
Because when he joined your team, he was a guard player with a great guard passing game. And then like few months later, he was fighting against like Lovato and all these guys and going standing against them, which he was not well known for at all.
I think that was surprised a lot of people.
Yeah,
I actually surprised Lovato, and you know Lovato was an MMA champion.
Yeah,
he was a Bellator champion, so he had very good takedowns.
Yeah, and
Nicolas had spent literally his entire career, as you correctly pointed out, he was a very good guard passer. But his matches all started with a guard pull.
He would pull guard.
And he had great sweeps.
Or the person would pull guard, one of the two.
And because he had great sweeps, he could always get to top position. Then his guard passing really was very good. But it never started with a takedown. And I think people were shocked when he was taking down an MMA champion. Then at ADCC, just a few months after that, he won best takedown of the tournament. I mean, no one saw that coming.
No, and even his match against Kainan, he was able to get a takedown, right? I think he's even against Felipe as well. He was able to get a takedown. Yeah. So now he became a takedown guy.
Interestingly, the very techniques which he showed in those matches will be covered in this video because they are among the fastest that you can learn. And I think everyone expected Nicolas to get good no-gi, but what really surprised people was the speed with which he did it. And in particular in areas that he had previously not exhibited at all. And that I think caught people by surprise. But it was a good reminder that you can get a very, very good level of effectiveness in a relatively short period of time if you just focus on the elements which are the most important in the game. And a lot of people their progress in standing position is very slow because they look at it in the wrong way. They think, oh, I need to learn some takedowns. So they see a takedown and they practice it with their friends, and all they're working is the takedown rather than the context around the takedown. Moreover, they don't bring takedowns together in chains. And as a result, if the takedown fails, there's no there's no backup option to it. It just stops right there and the momentum is lost. And so there's no context. They just come out and they just, from wherever they are, try and shoot for a takedown. That's a disaster. You need some kind of ability to work your way positionally into the takedown. What's the great cliche of jiu-jitsu on the ground? Position before submission.
Yep.
In standing position, it's always control before takedown. And if there's no prior control, it's very hard to hit a takedown, even on someone who's not that good. But if you teach that idea of embedding all of your takedowns in control and then showing how failure in one aspect of a takedown leads into different forms of takedown, then people become very effective very quickly.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, and when I watch your athletes competing, one thing that's very interesting that I think matches with what you're saying is that we all know what they will do. They will do all the Russian tie, make the entire, and start approaching like all type of different takedowns. So it's almost like you create a system to them that they can just follow step by step. And
the first section of the video is built around the idea of grip asymmetry. Far too often in the sport of jiu-jitsu, people just come out and just grip randomly. There's no method to their gripping. They just come out and they put hands on people and they try to sort of mimic what they see good athletes doing in terms of pulling and moving, but there's not an underlying methodology to what they're trying to do. The idea is to create an asymmetry in your gripping, where the grip that you have on your opponent, it confers greater control over him than he has over you. So, Asif, can we find you? But it doesn't do much good if both of us come out. People always say, oh, Danaher's guys, they're all collar tie guys. They grab collar ties and they start moving people around. It doesn't do me much good if I throw a collar tie on Flacio and he does exactly the same thing to me and we're just pulling each other around the mat. What we're always looking to do is create situations where I control his head, but he doesn't control mine. Okay, so I might let him take a collar tie, and then from here I'll take my collar tie, and then from this position we'll just shrug his arm off. When he goes to relock his collar tie, my hand takes the inside position, and now we create a situation where I have his collar, but when he tries to get mine, he can't. If he comes up on the other side and takes a collar tie like so, we'll over tie. And we'll constantly work on the idea of shrugging our training partner's hand off and getting that hand off the collar and then working our way back in. So that we're always in situations where I have the collar and inside tie, so when he goes for my head, can't do it. Okay, if he comes around the outside and takes an over tie, I can always walk away from this and just constantly create situations where I have his head, but he doesn't have mine. And as a result, now we can start making this guy step where we want him to step. If I want his back leg to step towards me, it's an easy thing to put it around the corner and bring it to me. If I want this front leg of his to come towards me, it's an easy thing for me to slip and pull. And in this way, I can manipulate my training partner's foot position, making the foot step in any way that I want to get this guy moving. Okay, as he starts to react to this, he starts to feel the threat, starts pulling back in a way, that's when people start getting tired. And that's when from here, it's going to be easy for us to run into our training partner's legs and start putting people down. So this idea of grip asymmetry, never looking for situations where we both have the same grip on each other. That's not going to do much good. So from here, we're constantly looking, however we do it. Doesn't matter if we chop from the inside and take the hand off. Doesn't matter if we roll the wrist off. Doesn't matter if he comes in on this side here. We take the hand off in this fashion. We're constantly clearing his hands off our head while maintaining our own. And in this way, we can walk the guy around the mat, make him step any way he wants. And that's going to set up the more high percentage takedowns in the sport. One thing we constantly emphasize here is the idea of never carrying an opponent's weight. If I'm in on a leg and this guy's sprawling those legs back, I never want to get extended underneath people. As his legs go back, you're carrying your opponent's weight on your head and shoulders, and that's just exhausting and frustrating. You can easily get defeated if that happens. So we put a lot of emphasis here. Once we're starting moving people around, of going into situations where we're staying off our knees as much as possible and getting up into situations where we're never exposing the back of our head to our opponent's body weight. The second my head comes down and his weight comes on me, problems start to develop. So we're constantly emphasizing head position, where the head's coming up, pushing into the training partner and keeping that weight off of us. So when he tries to put weight on us, it's going to be very difficult. Okay, from here, it's a relatively easy thing to start keeping people out of balance and getting them off us. So we can never have the back of our head exposed. If your weight comes down, it feels terrible. But the second we recover posture and come up, now we recover.
Yeah,
one of the big themes. Yeah, one of the big themes that we're pushing is this idea that no amount of position will make up for failures in posture. If my posture fails, it doesn't matter whether I have the position of a single leg means nothing if my posture fails. When my legs go straight, back rounds out, head down, it's just a disaster. But you can feel the second we start to improve our posture, everything starts coming up, and now we're going to be effective.
Yeah.
So, these old cliches, which help people so much. People use cliche like it's a terrible thing, but cliches help people a lot. On the ground, position before submission. In standing position, it's never enough just to have position. Posture and position have to be tied together. And so once you become aware of these themes, the learning process comes along a lot faster. You put all the takedowns in a context. You run them together so that as I fail with a single leg, come in like so. As I fail with a single leg, we can come up to our training partner's waist. And from the waist position, you'll see us making use of takedowns. You'll see Nicholas make use of takedowns like this all of the time. And getting to the waist, circling people through. Going from a failed takedown at the legs and coming to the waist or coming to an underhook. You'll see Nicholas hit his throw bars and get behind people. You'll see Gordon make use of this all the time.
Yeah.
And this theme that failure in one area doesn't mean failure overall. It just means a shift to a different kind of takedown. Everything is arranged in this video into 4 essential skills, which are linked, and those 4 skills work in a kind of open circuit, whereas one fails, you shift to another, and in this way you can become very, very effective in a relatively short period of time.
Right. Oh, John, what I feel that you do and your students do is almost like you create an unfair advantage in the controlling position, where just you have the Russian tired, they don't have it.
That's why so many people struggle in standing position, because they never emphasize the idea of prior control. They look, as it were, at the end result of the standing position, which is the takedown. They look at the end result and say, well, that's what I need to do, because it's the most noticeable, most obvious part of a chain of events, many of which are quite subtle. And so they look at the big obvious takedown and say, that's the skill I want to learn. And so when they come to the learning process, they just try to replicate what they've seen on the takedown itself. And they don't realize there's a very large number of things that had to fall into place before that takedown was possible. And in this video, we break down, okay, what are those things? How do you get control first so that you can enter into these takedowns? And if the takedown proves to be unsuccessful, well, we can't just give up. Okay,
we have to have transitions.
Yeah, where do we transition to? And put in that, when takedowns are put into a context like this, and it has to be a very specific context for the sport of jiu-jitsu, because the rule sets, the criteria of scoring for takedowns is very, very different in jiu-jitsu.
Especially considering ADCC versus...
ADCC is different even from the rest of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And so seen in that light, it's a fascinating thing to study. But I do believe, and I believe we've shown pretty conclusively that an athlete who has almost no background in standing position can achieve remarkable results in a fairly short time frame.
Yeah, no, and I remember the time when Gordon didn't have a good standing ground.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden he focused on that and you focus on him.
Yeah.
And he became really good at it to the point that he could start a match and trust that I'm going to take this guy down, or I'm going to make him very tired standing. And
the other thing about Gordon is people often think, oh, Gordon doesn't look good in standing position at all. And if you look at it in terms of wrestling, I would agree with that. Because elements of his stance, his shooting, it doesn't look like, if you came from like a classical wrestling background, you look at him and go, well, that looks off. And yet he's never been scored on in ADCC competition. He's gone against very good people who are known for their standing skills. In the gym, I've seen him go with wrestlers of the highest caliber, and under jiu-jitsu rules, man, it's hard to score on him, and he scores quite often. So again, Gordon was an athlete who, when he first came in, was known for leg locks and back attacks. He had no standing skills of any kind. And then around 3 months before his first ADCC tournament, we started bringing in standing game, and and now he's one of the more effective Jiu-Jitsu standing position athletes of all time.
Yeah, no, and I love the variety on your team, because I almost feel like they will become really good, at least at something standing. Because, for example, I'm talking about this thinking about Gary Tono.
Yes.
He's probably the person who has the most beautiful standing submissions that I ever saw in my life. Like, I just remember like him against Edwin Najmi on ADCC, that he did the flying scissor with the heel hook, and it came from standing. So it's like it started standing. So there are even submissions in this mix of like.
Gary has a very unique approach to standing game. It's based on the interplay between positional skill and submission skill, and when you can play those two together, it really creates some magic. This video is more about the classical positional element, scoring your takedowns, and what are the most important things I need to learn, and how can I put them together in a way where I can become very effective relatively quickly. And I think there's a big demand for that now.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, and this is ADCC year too, so I think it's gonna come in good time for the whole community. And no, this is awesome. Yeah, so guys, this entire week, Joy's shooting this instructional video, fastest way to become effective on the standing game in Jiu-Jitsu. And it's gonna be at BJJFanatics.com very soon. Maybe by the time you're watching, it's already there, so make sure to check that out. And thanks so much, Sean.
Pleasure to see you again.
Thank you. Please help me out to grow my YouTube channel. Just click subscribe. And to watch more videos, just click under see more videos. I hope you enjoyed.
BJJFanatics.com. Use the promo code YouTube Faria to get 10% off any instructional video. Improve your jiu-jitsu faster.